So we've got one question. This question is from this person's friend. They said, if you struggle with social anxiety, how do you step out of your shell to connect with others?
Wow, great question. If there is a legitimate issue of social anxiety, I'm again, whether it's myself, whether it's someone else, you got to get help. Counseling is a great way to start dealing with that approach. Okay. Yep. Practically, it's just getting used to it. If this is too difficult, but you can do a phone call, start with a phone call. All right. Yep. But part of that is where you might need to also learn how to get some social skills done, how to actually communicate. All right. So like, how do I communicate? Because I don't know how to talk. Well, practically, it's where you learn basic stuff. What's your name? My name's Jason. Oh, and what do you do during the week? That's one of my little themes that I teach people who actually deal with social anxiety, right? You know, what do you do during, notice what I did. I didn't say, what do you do for a living? How was your day? How was it? No, what did you do during the week? That allows an open space and open door for you to answer how you would choose to do. Jason, what did you do this week?
See, I like that. I like how it's open-ended, but the other questions, like, what were the other questions you said? Like, how's the weather? How was it? Those are so trite. They almost seem like they're not caring. But when you say, how was your week? What did you do? That has a level of, it's personal to a degree.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and it's got to be intentional. You have to mean what you're saying, not just you faking it. Right. But sometimes you got to practice it, right? Yep. And that's where working through with an individual can actually help those things. And then sometimes it's then just, that's more of the clinical side of things, right? You know, maybe like in your case, you're going to deal with more of the spiritual side of things. I'm going to come in with more of the clinical side of things. And that can actually be a good partnership sometimes, right? Absolutely. Between, let's say, like yourself as a pastor or spiritual leader and myself as the counselor, right? And that's where maybe there are some past traumas that need to be worked through, but maybe there's some social skills. Maybe there are some observational or diagnosed issues like, you know, high functioning, you know, I don't know, autism spectrum, ADHD, all those different kind of diagnoses that are out right now. And a lot of those areas, and I mention those because they're areas where sometimes, you don't have the social skills and you haven't learned how to do it. Well, now is as good as time as any to learn how to do it, to break out of that social anxiety. But beyond that, that's also part of, all right, dealing with fear, dealing with loss, dealing with sudden change. And this is where now I have to actually talk with people. You know, I've met people who this is actually very difficult to do, but they can talk on the phone. They can meet with someone face to face. So everyone's got a little bit of a different form of anxiety, I call it, depending on what they are. But there are ways that we can do it, learning about what's called closed-ended and open-ended communication skills, all that kind of stuff. So,
so basically what you're saying as well is that just start somewhere.
Start somewhere. Anxiety. Stand up, take 2 steps forward, and go from there.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I could be wrong about this, but this could be an issue with folks that do have anxiety over social things too, is I think sometimes they overthink what might happen.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And that's part of the fears. That's the brain spinning around. Yeah. Practically too, and this is another area, you know, which we don't have time for to go in today, but that's where I'm big on what I call intentional breathing. Okay. Not just breathing. All right. Imagine I had a balloon. Okay. If I had a balloon, all right, and it's not filled. All right. And I'm this. Okay. Am I breathing? Yes or no? Yeah. Yeah, I'm breathing. But what kind of breathing is what I'm talking about. What I'm doing right now is shallow breathing. Oh, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, everything's, oh, I'm so scared. The balloon is not being filled. And here's the thing, without going into too much detail, we have to intentionally breathe and start filling the balloon up to connect within our brain, what I call connecting the emotion-centered part of our brain to the cognitive top portion of our brain, all right, our logic, reasoning side. We got to connect the two together so we can connect our emotions with our logical thought so we can be calm, caring. Hey, I can actually have a conversation. I can relax. I'm all good to go. Yeah. But as soon as I'm like freaking out and anxious, the brain balloon shrinks. And that's what I call that, the brain balloon. And now we're all emotional based, walking in fear and anxiety and, fear, flight, freeze, all that stuff, because that's where our amygdala is located. Right. Okay. So that's why we got to fear it. So that's just a different analogy, just for those who are dealing with
it's an analogy that fits exactly with when someone is hyperventilating. That has to do with breathing. Absolutely. That is connected to anxiety.
You got it. But I'm breathing. No, you're shallow breathing. You're not intentionally breathing.
Exactly. So we have another question here.
Sure.
Hello, Dr. Hazel. She's joining us on here.
Nice. Good to see you, Dr. Hazel.
We have another question from, just trying to see here. How do I create normalcy if I temporarily lost my job? My normalcy is normally connected to work, but now I'm not at work.
Absolutely. So it's taking with what you have right now. And that's a great question, because a lot of people are dealing with it or potentially are about to deal with it. Okay. Yeah. And that's where it's taking what you have control of right now in your life. So you would get up, for example, even though you're not getting up for work, if you got up for work at 6 a.m. in the morning, now is not the time to wake up at 10 or 11. You got to create routine of still getting up at 6 and 7 and create normalcy in your life, which will then, out of that routine, as I said, will create normalcy. If you've lost your job, now you have the job of finding a new job, which means that during those working hours, you are online. You are doing the best you can to at least keep an eye out as to what jobs are available. Even if there is none available, you're at least doing your part. And I'll just say this from a pastoral standpoint, since you're a pastor, Jason, this is one of the statements I like to say for those who are more, from a spiritual perspective, is doing your part in the natural to allow God, all right, or in a 12-step perspective, your higher power, to do his part in the supernatural. Okay. It's that creating that partnership. So if you're not working, then you're working. It's just going to look differently. If you've had an idea for a business and I'm not saying you're spending $1,000 or $10,000 on this great business idea. No. I'm saying during some of that downtime, use some of that time to start developing some of those things that you've always thought of. Yep. Maybe there's education and upgrading that you might have an opportunity or availability to talk about. We haven't heard that per se yet from the government. Everyone's talking about how can I get my money and stuff. But what about potential educational opportunities? Yeah. If that comes up and you've been unemployed for a period of time, take the opportunity, get educated, continuous education. All right. Yep. And you should be doing that anyways, even if you are working. Yeah.
So it's a great time. You and I discussed this earlier to pursue opportunities, because there's always opportunities, even in crises. I mean, we all know, as they say, that during times like this, that the rich get richer, but they don't don't get rich. A lot of people think, well, they get richer because they already had money. No, it's not. They don't just sit and hold their money and get richer. They look for opportunities to use what they have. And even if you have less, you still have something that you can use during this time. That's good.
And on a practical standpoint, they bust their butt in that time. Yeah. It's not just, 9 to 5, working on my business, working on my new idea. No. Oh my gosh, now I am working 12 hours because this has to work. I've got a family to feed. Yeah. Okay. From a practical perspective. All right.
That's good. Yeah.
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 And that's another talk.
And what we're saying is be proactive and you keep the normalcy. I like what you said too, by keeping the same hours.
Absolutely. Right? And I mean, when you have lunch, if you had lunch at 11 o'clock because of your weird shift, continue to have lunch at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's good.
If oftentimes when we talk about forms of loss, one example I like to use is, here's it's retirement. People who are going through change just in retirement. Yeah. That creates all of a sudden, maybe it's not a sudden change, but many times people are left with going, what do I do now? And maybe you're that cat who is working downtown Calgary and every second day you'd go to the Devonian Gardens. Well, then when you retire, you still need to go take the drive or take the bus downtown and have lunch at the Devonian Gardens. Yeah, but I'm in isolation now. Okay, then go in your backyard and have lunch. Yeah. in nature of some sort, similar but different.
It's keeping that schedule like that we talked about children.
Yes.
We talked about it in regards to children, but we need it just as much. It's a human thing. As the old adage or saying goes, that we're creatures of habit.
Yeah. And so going back to that number one thing, how do I create predictability? How do I create normalcy? Write it out. Create a schedule. From 8 until 9, I'm going to go look on Indeed. From 9 until 10, I'm going to go to Udemy and do some self-online learning or something like that. Or in your case, with the organization you're a part of, maybe I'm going to take a Bible college class online. Okay. Those kind of things. Maybe you can add a link to that at the bottom, when we're done this,
for sure.
Those kind of concepts, self-learning, growing, yourself. Okay. In order to help others, all that kind of stuff. Write it out though. Now's the time, like never before, to create intentional goal setting.
That's right.
Not just, I'm gonna maybe start it. No. Mm-hmm. In this year, this is what I'm gonna try to do. 2 to 5 years, this is what I'm gonna do. 10, and what's that? One of my favorite authors in the business side of things, his name's Jim Collins, and he's got this thing where he goes, what's your BHAG? Which stands for big, hairy, audacious goal. What's that thing that there's no way this could ever happen, but if it could, that'd be so cool. You need to write it out. Well, you got time, you might as well do it, but you're not going to do that unless you do again the second part, and that's get up, take 2 steps forward, get your notebook and start writing it out.
That's right.
Get that momentum going.
Exactly. And of course, in all this, we're not saying that there aren't times for rest, that there aren't times to.
No,
so again, that's a part of that normalcy is, well, hopefully your normalcy before all of this or before a big change, hopefully your normalcy included some rest. I'm just being honest, from what I've noticed, being in a city now, we've been here for 5 years, coming from a smaller community, it's go.
Yeah.
And I think this might be a time of resetting for people, that people also begin to realize the importance of getting rest. And so in saying that we want to keep this normalcy, your normalcy from before might have needed corrections. Right? You weren't resting as good as you should have before. And so I think that needs to be a part of that normalcy as well. And you know what? Schedule it. There's nothing wrong with
absolutely.
that.
And guess what? I hate to say this, and this is not to offend any viewer, but it's not rocket science what I've talked about. What we've talked about in the last hour, Jason. But it's the intentionality of it. It's actually doing it. And that's the difference between going, I know I should do this, to actually taking steps to do it. But what a better time now to actually start doing it.
That's right.
Some will, some won't. But that's
actually
okay.
It's funny that you said that, because what's the one excuse that most people use for not starting something that they should? I don't have time.
You have time now.
So I think we've completely removed that excuse for the majority of people anyways. And it's so true.
And to take that excuse out, that's where you have to self-evaluate yourself and go, is it really that I don't have time right now? Or is it that I actually don't want to make time right now?
True.
That
comes back to the avoiders.
Exactly. Well, and I'm now making a willful choice.
Right.
So if I'm choosing not to take a moment when I know I should be writing a blog or doing some education, that kind of thing, I have to tell myself, I am making a choice to not do this. So I am responsible and not blaming others for why I'm doing what I'm doing or not doing what I know I should be doing.
Right. Yeah, but again, thank you everybody for joining tonight. And I hope that you gleaned something from this, something that can actually help you and your family and even your friends. You can share this link with them, again, from my Facebook page there as well. And so again, thanks so much, Jeremiah. And just God bless everybody that watched tonight. And I don't know what else to say. How do you end a webinar?
Virtual high five, bro.
Virtual high five.